secure escape.
Hey, welcome back. We are glad you're here. Don't touch that dial. You are in the right place if you're looking for inspiration, motivation, encouragement. We have it for you here at Last in Line Podcast, where we are teaching guys how to not only charge the mountain and be the tip of the spear in leadership, but also to be the kickstand that props people up and empowers and encourages other leaders to be the best version of the leader within them. We are all leaders. We all have influence. And as it says in Mark 9:35, he who wants to be first will be the last of all and servant of all. That's what Last in Line Podcast is about. And I hope you walk away different than when you turned on this podcast. I hope you walk away with the revelation that you were called to lead, that you were called to have influence, and that you were called to serve. Hey, what's up? Hope everybody's doing well. I got something for you today that's been on my mind for a while now, and I would assume that most dads think about this, but it started coming to me and revealing itself in an outline form, and I thought I might as well talk about it because this might help some of you dads that are out there. But I feel like we have a responsibility to be cognizant of the gifts that we're leaving our children. And so today I'm calling this Able and Anchored. So I'm giving my kids 5 gifts, and there's just these 5, but there might be more, but these are 5 that I think are pivotal to their development, to their maturity, to their training, to how they show up as adults. So Able and Anchored is what I'm calling this. 5 gifts I'm going to give my kids. The first one obviously is going to be around, if you know me, which most of you that listen to this are like-minded in this way. I'm a spiritual guy. I'm a man of faith. I'm a follower of Christ. I'm not perfect. Have a long way to go still every day, but been a Christian for 18 years. So almost 19, I guess. And it's a process. So if you're listening to this and you feel like you fall short and you don't know enough scripture and you don't pray well enough, like join the boat, get in the boat with all of us who are imperfect, but it's all about a heart issue. And if you're submitted and surrendered to Christ, then that's good enough for him. And that we're trying to be better every day, honoring and serving people. So my gift number 1 for my kids is to be the spiritual leader of the home. It doesn't need more of an explanation to justify it, because there is no justification. It is black and white. It is true. It is something that is non-negotiable and is really not up for discussion. But men, if you're listening and you're not the spiritual leader of your home, meaning you're not taking the reins in leading through prayer every day with your family, hopefully they see you in the Word. Hopefully they know you've actually picked up a Bible and read it or looked at it, your daily and devotionals on your phone. That counts. We're not saying you got to stand at a pulpit every day and talk to your family, but we are saying that they need to know that you have some scripture in you and that you are anchored and well-versed in the Word of God, and that you know how to pray like a human, not a robot, not like some, New King James version of the Bible, not dogging that, but that's not how we talk. So conversational, they just need to know and see the example that you're giving every day, that you're not just a Christian of catastrophe. So you're not praying and thanking God whenever you get bailed out of a sticky situation or things are really going south and there's been a disaster, and then all of a sudden you're running to God. Those are times obviously we do, but if your kids are only seeing the fact that, man, dad gets real spiritual when he's desperate, or we give thanks when things are good, but I think they need to see just ordinary average days that we're submitted and we're actually leaning on God in those moments of that are vanilla, the moments that really aren't high or low, the non-polarizing circumstances in life that we're given thanks, like little things. We just, we're going on a cruise in a few days, and when you hear this, we'll actually be on it, but we have to all provide negative COVID tests, of course. And there's like 8 of us going. That's a little stressful, especially for my wife, who did all the administrative work to schedule them and arrange for passports and all the garbage that you have to provide documentation to just step on a ship. But anyway, so we're praying. I've prayed all week about these negative tests. I mean, if you have 8 people going on a cruise and it's paid for, and you have a child that maybe tests positive, that creates it turns the whole thing upside down. So I told them the whole week, I said, I believe for favor over these tests. I believe, and I pray to God every day about them, and it's not just a thing where I'm praying to hope to receive something, but it's praying knowing that He's in control, and whatever happens is meant to happen. But at the same time, I have faith that He wants us to go on this trip, hopefully, and so that's what I'm telling you, is even in little COVID test results, right? And I will say 6 out of the 8 have come back negative so far, and we're waiting on the other 2. So anyway, like little things. We don't have to be lightning bolt Christians. We don't have to be Christians of desperation. We can lean into God in little bitty moments, just like we can the big ones. But I got to tell you, this one's first. Being spiritual leader of my home is first on this list for a good reason, because it's the most important gift I can give my children. If you're out there listening to this and you have a big bank account and you're thinking of giving them, an inheritance that's got dollar signs in front of it, that's fine. But if you've got a sports car or a Rolex that you've got in the will, or you've got a trust for them, or whatever you're leaving your kids, whatever your gift you plan to give them, there's nothing more important than you being the spiritual leader of the home and them seeing you walk that out, not just preach at them, but be about the Christian faith. Be about following Jesus in your everyday little life, mundane or not. They need to see that you're leaning into God, and that you're fully surrendered to Him, and that He is at the top of your list of everything you do. So that's why this one's at the top of what we're doing today. Again, able and anchored. That's a big anchor, right? That they can count on, is that I am the spiritual leader of the home. The second one is that, they need to see that their dad loves their mom well. That dad honors, serves, loves their mother above them. Just below Christ is their mother. It's not equally spread out. If I've got 4 kids and a wife, it's not my love, and ranking divided by 5 equally. It's God, their mom, then them. Yeah, the 4 kids are loved equally, but they all know. My kids know I love their mom more than I love them, and I put their mom above them, right? So for those of you that don't agree with that, you might want to just turn off the podcast now, because you're probably not going to agree with the rest. But I'm telling you, they need to see it, because the way we talk to their mother, the way we physically interact appropriately yet intimately and loving, affectionately with their mother is huge. We've got to, and I can't say I've always done this the right way. Let me just give you context, and let me throw myself on the chopping block here for a second. I would say for a long time, up until kind of recently, but growing up around sports and around guys, and just being, having a dad who was a Marine, having cousins who were strong athletes, different spheres of influence in my life. And so locker room talk was a big thing. You always just give each other crap. We're always just like jabbing at each other, sarcastic, ragging on each other. Like, that's in baseball, you just rag on each other. That's how you know you love each other. It's just a weird dynamic, but whatever. So that trickled into my marriage, and she was my best friend going into marriage, and became even, obviously more than that. But typically, I hope your wife starts out as your best friend, and or becomes your best friend. So I talked to her like I talked to my friends growing up. I had a hard habit. It was a hard habit to break there, but I had to understand she doesn't respond to those type of things. And it took me years, and we would eventually, I think she just kind of became that because I was sort of turning her into that. So we just sort of had this dynamic of back and forth, jabbing each other, sarcasm and jokes, and all in light heart. But eventually it turns into the intentionality is destructive in a way, or hurtful, especially whenever you disagree on something and then you go the sarcasm route. It becomes hurtful. So I've evolved in that, thankfully, through many silent treatment days, through many arguments, through, I don't know, I mean, many days I doubted whether or not we were going to make it, just because we were so into that rhythm of sarcasm and jabbing at each other, but thinking we could talk to each other like buddies do in a locker room. And it's not true. So the kids need to see that you love their mom well. They need to see how you talk to them. They need to see how you interact with them. They need to see you serving her. So if you're expecting your wife to just be the pregnant and barefoot in the kitchen type of mom and wife doing all of the necessary household duties, then your kids see and that ultimately becomes disrespectful. Yes, the wife and the husband have agreements on duties and roles in the home, and yes, the wife's usually is more domestic than the husband's, and so, but they have to see us serving her too. It's not just we're this big bad dude who fixes the leaky sink or builds a fence in the backyard or picks up something heavy that she can't move. We're not just that. We are that, but we're not just that. They need to see you taking her a cup of coffee in the morning without her asking. They need to see you doing a load of laundry when you notice it's backed up and she's doing something else, and you know what you're doing there. Like, it doesn't emasculate men. It doesn't emasculate us, guys, if we're doing those kinds of things around the house to serve our wife. Some of you already know this, but some of you need to learn it and need to follow through with it, and need to establish some patterns and habits within yourself to help serve your wife more. There aren't the duties that make you manly or less manly in the home. It's about serving and helping her run the home the right way. So the kids need to see that. So that's the second gift I've given them, is they know how I love their mother well in front of them, and they know where the pecking order is on the ranking sheet, that their mother is above them, and that's important. The third one is a dad needs to be, the gift needs to be a dad who is physically capable and prepared. Talked about this before. You can turn on any podcast that talks about manhood, masculinity, manliness, whatever. You could turn one on, any one of those on, and you're going to hear that a dad needs to be physically capable and prepared, and it's 100% accurate. So we can't hear that too much. So thank you to all the guys out there that are doing it and having the right message for us men. But yeah, we need to be capable physically, guys. We need to be, and look, you can fill in the blank with whatever you want it to be. That's a gift I need to give them, is somebody that they can count on, and they see, look, dad's in physical shape, right? Dad's not a youngster anymore, but he's still capable if something was ever to happen. And they see my daily regimen of physical weight training, and hopefully they respect it. Hopefully it's been a good example for them. And I have kids who I put in the weight room early in life, junior high, while they were in sports, and they've carried that through high school and college, and hopefully they'll continue to carry that through adulthood. I think they will, because they see me do it and they see the value in it. So that's the third one, is we've gone through a dad who is the spiritual leader of the home. These are gifts that I'm giving them, right? Able and anchored. is what I'm calling this. So the first one's a dad who's a spiritual leader. Then I've got a dad who loves their mother well. The third one I've got is a dad who is physically capable and prepared. Fourth one is a dad who is tender and tough. So tender and tough, stole that from somebody. I don't know. Might have been Jesus, who was both. I don't know if he used those words, but no, I think they've got to see our level of emotional vulnerability, relational vulnerability. They need to see a level of humility, which I talk about all the time. I think every episode, in fact, and I think I might just keep that streak going. But our level of humility and vulnerability shows them that we don't think we've got it all figured out. We don't think we know everything, and that we're not too above showing emotion, showing a reaction. If it's sadness, if somebody dies, they need to see a dad be able to cry. Like I've shown my kids that my dad passed away, grandmother passed away, mother-in-law, different. Our dog of 13 years. I mean, that's a hard thing, guys. But it's not like I'm crying at every sad movie I see. It's they need to see if a dad's going through pain, how to process it, because it's healthy. If my kids think that they can't show that emotion, then they suppress. As they get older, it becomes a habit. Then they get stuck in this rhythm of just stuffing down emotions that are negative. And then you've got some sort of toxicity within themselves, and then they start trying to manifest that in other ways and outlets to maybe suppress that, right? And then all of a sudden there's alcohol, there's porn addiction, there's other addictions out there, there's destructive behavior, all to maybe masquerade those emotions. So I wanted to show them it's healthy in certain situations, to be vulnerable, to be emotionally available, and not be afraid to express some of that, but tender and tough, it goes hand in hand. And so I think they need to understand that dad knows how to love them. Dad knows he can touch them and hug them and kiss them regardless of their age and gender. Hug every one of my children literally, I think, multiple times a day. And the one that doesn't live here anymore, obviously don't see him every day, but tell him I love him a lot. Every time I see him, when they get here, when they leave, we're hugging each other. We're just a touchy, affectionate family. And the kids need to see the dad be able to show affection. There's a great book, Gary Chapman, called The 5 Love Languages. I recommend everybody read that. Understand what your wife's is, understand what yours are, understand what your kids are. They make one just for kids, they make one for adults. But if you know how your kids respond to a certain type of love, you're able to give it, and you're able to appeal to that personality a little better. That speaks volumes, guys. It doesn't do any good if they know you can handle a 9mm handgun and you can bench press 300 pounds. Like, it doesn't do any good if they don't feel comfortable enough to approach you in tender situations, in emotionally volatile situations, something they're going through in hard times. If they can't come to you because you're just going to be Mr. Tough Guy all the time, that's a barrier you've put up. That's a wall you've built around your relationship in between you and them. So I definitely recommend show vulnerability when it's right, when it's appropriate. Show that you're tender in moments where they need somebody to just put your arm around them, regardless if it's a girl or a boy. You hug your sons, like tell them you love them. We can make strong, rugged, masculine dudes and train them up to be, productive members of society, and still show them affection and love them. So that's my 2 cents on that part. But the toughness part, we need to be resilient and we need to be stern. They need to know we're not wavering on certain things. We need to be assertive when we're either executing the discipline part that is our role, or we're just basically trying to convey and communicate a message that something's not tolerated, or this is how we're going to proceed. It's not up for discussion. Like there are certain times when a dad needs to come in and be unshakable on a decision, make hard decisions, have hard conversations. You guys know this, but sometimes we're trying to, I think we feel like there's a sliding scale on whether we need to be stern in a moment or not. I think we let the circumstance dictate our behavior more than us going into the situation with all the facts, information, and then ahead of time understanding this is the decision, this is the verdict, and we're not moving off of this. So it needs to be sternly communicated, but it also, I mean, in love. Okay, the Bible says truth in love. It's in there. Look it up. So we need to be truthful, but we need to be loving at the same time. So stern is necessary, but in the tender and tough part of this, we got to be resilient. We got to be stern. Our resilience, they got to see us push through uncomfortable times. They got to see us deal with bad news. They got to see us when we're stressed. How are we handling it? You've heard things are caught more than taught. And I would agree with that to an extent, not everything, but I would agree with that a lot. They need to see what we do. I mean, we're back to this whole COVID test, and the only reason I'm using that as an example, and of course you're not ever supposed to go into podcasts and like outdate yourself with certain circumstances that expire. But hey, a year from now, we won't be talking about COVID tests, hopefully. But look, this was a big thing on our plate this week. We've got to all make it on this cruise ship. We're all having the anticipation of these COVID tests, right? We're in the car and we're ready. And we're waiting for them to give us the swab. And we're all sitting in there. We're going to do it and give it back to them at the pharmacy, right? Well, everybody's stressed. Nobody likes doing the COVID test. Nobody likes jamming a rod with a cotton ball at the end of it up your, into your brain. Nobody likes it. My daughter, my son, my wife, like everybody's like freaked out. I'm like, I don't like it, but still we got to do it. And so daughter and son are freaking out a little bit. I'm like, look, this is not how we react to these situations. We have to go through with it. We have to press through the fear, the pain, the anticipation, like the stress. But what's on the other side of it, we know we want it more than we're fearful of the means to that end. So teaching our kids in those moments, just stay calm. Let's, the initial reaction and the knee-jerk reaction is to be stressed and fearful and not want to do it and freak out and get your blood pressure up and stressed. But let's go the other direction. Let's do something uncommon. Let's be unpopular. Let's create a new normal for how we react in these situations. Everybody's doing this over here. Let's do this. Everybody's stressed out. Let's not be. So I tried to be that example for them. And that's what we, as resilient dads, that's what we got to do, is just be the example and show them in situations we can handle bad news. I didn't say we like it. I didn't say we go jump around out in the neighborhood, out and run around the street cheering that we got bad news or that we're physically ill or in pain. Like there's not a time where we should celebrate those, but there's a time to show them, I know this is coming. My expectation is what it is. This is what I'm prepared to do, and I'm going to come out on the other side of it. That's resilience, pressing through those situations. So that's what we're talking about when we say a dad who's physically capable and prepared, a dad who loves their mother well, a dad who's spiritual leader of the home, and then that last one, a dad who's tender and tough. Okay, the final one, guys, again, we're talking about being able and anchored, the 5 gifts that I want to give my kids. And hopefully you want to give your kids too. And hopefully you're in the process of building that foundation and passing that torch in these ways. The last one's a dad who teaches discipline and boundaries. Kind of goes hand in hand with that tough part, but I'm going to elaborate a little bit because we got a lot of people in society, even good, strong Christian, capable men who want to be their kids' friends, who don't like having those conversations of conflict or disagreement with their kids because they think I may throw them over the edge. They may go down this bad road or this dark path, or I don't want to, ruffle feathers. I want to be their friend. I got news for you. I need you to show me, not news for you. I got a question for you. Show me where in scripture it talks about parents being their kids' friend. Show me where it says avoid hard conversations with your kids so that they don't get mad at you and want to not be your friend. Show me scripture for that, and we'll reassess this particular bullet point. So discipline and boundaries. Look, getting ready to start teaching a class in the fall with my wife, a parenting class about boundaries in parenting, because we're coddling these kids and we're trying to be their friends, and we're afraid to set these boundaries, and we're afraid to write them in permanent marker because we don't want them to be upset or hurt feelings. So we got to be able to set standards, and we got to be able to set them that reflect respect and obedience to the parents, right? To each other, but to the parents. So our kids need to understand in a clear way. We've got to definitively outline and establish the respect and the obedience standards that we have in the family. My kids learned early on that they're about to get that open-handed whip right on their butt if they backtalk or disobey or just flat out defy. Like, they are about to get that butt smacked. And I'm talking literally their butt, okay? Not slapping anybody in the face, so don't start freaking out. But no, that I'm going to tell you, when we took out corporal punishment and spanking with paddles in the educational institutions, we started to derail as a society. I can almost guarantee you. We took out that, and we took out God out of schools. When that happened, look, that's what you got right now is a dysfunctional educational system where the tail's wagging the dog. Kids aren't fearful. Kids don't respect authority. Kids don't even acknowledge authority sometimes. So we took out spanking, we took out God, and here's what you have. Congratulations, woke universe. So anyway, the woke-averse. Yeah, I just did that. So anyway, respect and obedience are keys to establish as the dad. So my gift to them is teaching boundaries, teaching discipline. Look, kids want boundaries. They aren't going to say it out loud, but kids want, and they, oh, by the way, need them. So, dude, you got to set boundaries, clear ones, and you can't waver. They will smell that like like a bee that can smell fear. Bees and dogs can smell fear. Like your kids can smell when your boundaries are wavering and you're wanting to be their friend more than you're wanting to lay that slab and not budge on something. We've gotten rid of consequences. I mean, I remember the days of going from good to bad to worse. Now, good discipline and consequence was, as a parent, good, not as the kid, but boy, I used to get my butt lit up if I ever disrespected my mother, or I ever purposely defied a specific order, or command from my parents. Like, I got lit up. And so we go from that to fast forward 20 years. And, now we've got timeout with kids. When I was as a parent, young parent, and kids are young, that timeout was a big deal. I don't even know if we did that. We might've done that for a minute, but timeout was it was limited in my house. It was more of a don't do it, then you get the look, and then you get the SWAT type of deal. And my kids learned that growing up. And I will say with my daughter, it was different. So full disclosure, I physically disciplined the boys, but yeah, my wife became the butt swatter when it came to the daughter. And that for just, rightly so. She can lightly tap the daughter's butt, but the daughter gets it still. That's the point, is do they get it, and does it deter that behavior next time? But yeah, my kids, they understood that the worst thing they can do, literally, they can get in trouble for other things, and we can dish out consequences, but the worst thing they can do, and what will get dad to flip his lid and lose it on them, is disrespecting their mother. That goes back up to the number 2 point of dad loving their mother well. Well, this is part of that. They disrespect their mom. They know dad is here he comes. There's no timeout. There's no look. It's physically on, and we're going to maybe get maybe a spatula or a wooden spoon out of the cabinet this time. But no, they learned that real quick, and they really didn't do that much. I mean, my kids were really good. I'm really blessed. They're way better kids than I ever was. And so I didn't have to get to that point a lot. They knew early. That's the thing. You set these standards early in their life, and it won't be as hard to implement and to enforce those as they get older. They learn them early, and they're like, I ain't going down that road. So the respect and obedience is huge. You got to set that standard early, set that tone, let them know you're not wavering. We talked about consequences and not being their friends. Parents, if you're struggling with this, you can be their friends later in life. But when you're trying to mold these young people into productive members of society who, in boys' situations, masculinity, you're trying to train them to be physically capable, spiritually sound as men and women, young men and women. You're trying to do these things. Look, don't worry about whether they're friends with you right now. Because I said so is an okay thing, even though that doesn't always stick. But they got to see you being an example. Then they got to know that you love them, and then they got to understand the respect component, and then they follow suit in what your commands, your directives, the things that you suggest. They will follow that. So start early, but you don't have to be their friend right now. Let's wait for that. That will come. Okay, trust me, it will come. But then the last part of this is, don't be swayed by what everyone else is doing. And we, as parents, I'll say this is one area we did pretty well. We didn't ever really fall victim to them coming home and asking to go somewhere we didn't think was a good environment, or go do something that I didn't think was in our wheelhouse, as far as it might have been dangerous, or it might have been suspect morally, could have been a awkward environment to maybe create some temptation. Like, we were pretty hard and fast on that. But we would get that kid that would come home and say, everyone's doing it. Everybody's going. They're all going to be. And so my wife and I made a joke, and we created this fictitious person called Everyone Smith. And so when our kids would come and say, look, everybody's going so-and-so. Everyone Smith, really? Oh, is that right? Because when they say everyone, there's like 4 people that they want to hang out with that are going. It's not everyone. So you can't let the social circle of your child dictate your direction and your decision on a particular thing they're asking for. So again, setting those standards up front and knowing what we're not letting our kids do, regardless of if they come home and ask about it. Like, you're not going here past midnight on, a school night, or past 10 o'clock on a school night. You're not going here with this person, because we already know what they're doing. At an early age, they're suspect morally at best. So no, you're not going. And so it's one of those, you don't care how they react. You set that up front. You make that decision up front. When they ask and you say no, you don't care what the reaction is. In fact, if they know the respect and obedience part that we just talked about, and you've set those standards at an early age, if they push the envelope on those times that you say no, they also know that discipline can carry out, and there can be consequences to their reaction. So that's the beauty of it, is you shouldn't have to fight and argue and state your case as a parent, because they already know that's going to take them down a road they don't want to go. So what everyone else is doing, we don't care. Right. And there's gray area here too. Like, I'm not saying just absolutely not. If everyone's going, you're not going. Like, we factor in rational thinking and behavior and what our standards as parents are. And so as a dad, I'm giving them the gift of discipline and boundaries. So whether they know it or not, they want it. But I'm a disciplinarian, but I set that standard early in life, and they understand what is not acceptable. But the boundaries have come into play really well with most of my kids. Like, I will say, maybe they've stretched the boundary some, they've pushed it beyond, and there's been consequences. They're not perfect. I can't tell you how many times I stretched the boundaries, if there were any. I think there were a lot of unspoken ones that I sort of subjectively determined were okay or not okay. Like, there was a gray area, and so I took liberties where I shouldn't have and paid the price for some of that. But as parents, don't leave any gray area. Don't leave any stone unturned. Anyway, these are five that I think are going to, five gifts you can give your kids, because I'm going to give my kids these. And I'm doing an okay job. I still have work to do, but these are ones that I've been conscientious of because I believe they're going to come in huge and handy in training our kids. So, able and anchored, five gifts I gave my kids. I'm giving them currently and consistently. And I'll go through them again real quick. A dad who's the spiritual leader of the home, a dad who loves their mother well, a dad who is capable physically and prepared mentally, a dad who's tender and tough, and a dad who teaches discipline and boundaries. These things will serve you as a dad, and they will make your kids actually turn out to be pretty good members and contributors in society. So, hey, send us an email, lastinlineleadership@gmail.com. Send us a rating and review. Send us a like. Give us a follow. Instagram, last_in_line_leadership. Let us know what you think. Let us know if this episode helped you, equipped you. Let us know what we should have added, or maybe we left out. Let us know what you think. With that, be blessed.
Make your escape.